Hey y'all, Ramdino here, coming at you from western North Carolina. Today we're going to talk about my upcoming section hike on the AT and what I do as far as planning to make it happen. So stick around. Okay, so on the sections hike on the AT, where am I going? I don't really know yet. That's part of the planning process. But I do know one of my goals is to try to avoid the hiker bubble. Most of you probably know what the hiker bubble is, but for those that don't know what the hiker bubble is, that's when you get everybody starting at one time, heading Nobo out of Amicalola Falls or Springer Mountain, if they don't do the approach trail, and you get this giant group of people going together. People have already started in January, and now we're into February, and so they are starting, that bubble starting to get ramped up. So I'm going to try to avoid that. I enjoy the social aspect as much as anybody, but I also like being out in God's creation by my own, just by myself, and so I'm going to try to avoid that. So that's part of the planning process, and by looking at how I'm going to avoid that, we're going to look at where I'm actually going to start. So I don't know where I'm starting on the trail. I do know I'm heading Nobo, and I do know I'm going the last weekend in February. So the last weekend in February, that just happens to be the weekend before the big thru hiker kickoff at Amicalola Falls. So that'll be a big time for anybody that's interested. You don't have to be a thru hiker or even a section hiker to go to that and have a good time. But they'll have a lot of gear vendors there. They'll have a lot of people that are, of course, getting ready to kick off their thru hike, and they'll have a lot of classes and stuff. So check that out on Amicalola Falls in Georgia State Parks and see what they got to offer there.
Okay, so we're back inside, and we're inside because I have to utilize the internet in order to start planning my thru hike. So as I said, I want to try to avoid the bubble, and so I'm going to look for different resources to help me do that. And one of the best resources, I think, is for data on where the bubble is the Appalachian Trail Consevancy. And the Appalachian Trail Conservancy has a website that you can go to, and they can tell you how many people have registered with them for their thru hike. And it breaks it down by, every other day, tells you how many folks have registered. And so as of January 30th, there's 1,590 thru hikers that are registered to start Nobo from Springer. So they can also tell you who's starting Sobo from Katahdin, and they can tell you who's flip-flopping from Harper's Ferry. But for our purposes, we're going to look at who's heading Nobo from Springer. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go on their website, and I'm going to see how many people and when they're leaving, so I can look ahead and try to stay ahead of that group of people. So what you have to do is you have to go to AppalachianTrail.org. That's www.appalachiantrail.org. Once you land on that home page, you'll go to the left and you'll click on the Explore tab, or just hover over the Explore tab, and you'll see it opens up there, and it has a link for a thru hike. So you'll click on that thru hike, and this is something that, obviously I'm using for a section hike, so it's just as easy to use it for a section hike as it is for a thru hike. So you'll see the thru hike page open up, and if you'll scroll down, you'll see it says voluntary thru hiker registration for 2018. So you're going to click on register your 2018 hike. You're not going to be registering your hike just by clicking on this. So go ahead and click on that. And when you click on that, it gives you another link there that says see how many thru hikers are already registered. So we're going to click on that, and it opens up the chart for the 2018 thru hiker registration. And I'll give that to you on the screen now. I'll talk you through it. So as you see on the, it's set up so that from left to right is when the calendar starts. And interesting enough, they don't start February 1. They start in February 9th. So that's, of course, after the first week of February, and then they go all the way to May. But there's already people on the trail in January, and there's already people that are starting before the second week in February. So doing just some looking over this and seeing how many people are going. My hike is going to be planned for, of course, we talked about the 23rd, starting the 23rd for a 4-day hike. And it looks like prior to that, for the first 3 weeks, we've got 127 through hikers that are registered. Now, according to the Appalachian Trail Conservancy, or the ATC, in the Asheville office, I called and they said, and asked them how many people don't register, what percentage. And so they said approximately 25% do not register, but that are through hiking. So we can add another 25% to that, but we're going to look at the first 2 weeks, because we're not concerned with everybody. We're just concerned with the first 2 weeks. So the first 2 weeks there, it looks like we have 127 people that are registered to start their through hike from Springer. So with that information in mind, we want to try to figure out how we need to stay ahead of them. So I just arbitrarily took the first week, and it looks like there's 16 people starting the first week. So if you add another 25% to that, which would be 4, then you're going to have about 20 people that are starting that first week. So we want to stay ahead of 20 people. Just from looking at other YouTube videos and what other people have to say, from last year in 2017, how they did their hike, and people that are coming up now in 2018, it looks like people are starting out the first 2 weeks, they manage about 8 miles a day, and then they start picking up and they get 16 miles a day, and then as they progress on the trail, get their trail legs, they get 20 and even more than that. But for our purposes, since we're going to be hitting the trail 2 weeks in front of when the registration charts show they're starting, we're going to look at the first 16 people there. So with the first 16 people and averaging about 8 miles a day, that's going to give us, let's see here, what's that going to give us? I ought to be able to do that in my head, shouldn't I? 16 times 8 is going to give us 128 miles. So based upon that, I need to be 128 miles north of Springer Mountain in order to stay ahead of that bubble. So where does that put me? Well, there's several things that I can, resources that I can look at in order to figure out where that's going to put me in front of the crowd. I can use the Appalachian Trail Conservancy's Thru Hiker Companion, which is going to give me a list of mileages, or I could use had it here just a second ago. Oh, here it is, the ubiquitous AWOL's AT guide. Could use that to get mileage and figure out where that 128 puts me. But before I do that, I want to check the accuracy of to see if I'm correct about that as far as how many people are starting and where they're going to be. And the ATC has again given me a easy way to do that, although it's not necessarily a tried and true like the registration has been going on for several years. But this is a new thing they have now, where the ATC allows you to register for campsites and shelters. As a matter of fact, they encourage you to do so. It's not mandatory. Neither is the registration for a through hike yet, but it's probably coming. But it's not currently required, and but it gives you a good indication of who may be there. So the easy way to find that is you have to go to atcamp.org. So we're going to go there now. And once you pull that up, you'll see AT Camper Registration is the landing page for that. And then if you'll scroll down, you'll see you can pick AT Section Hiker, you can pick AT Thru Hiker, AT Group Campers. But we're going to pick, since we're Section Hiker, we're going to pick a Section Hiker. Now, one thing about the Thru Hiker registration is the ATC has requested that when you register your thru hike, that you register for the first 4 shelters that you're going to be at. So that's an interesting fact there, and you know those shelters are going to be filling up quick, particularly with that amount of people that are going. So then the next page you're going to land on here is the AT Section Hiker registration form. And you scroll down to the bottom and it says direction to travel. So we're going to pick north to south, and number in the party, me and my buddy Drew, just going to be 2 of us. Then it brings you up to scroll down a little farther, and it says your itinerary information, start your itinerary. So you click on that and it brings up a map of the entire eastern seaboard Appalachian Trail. So the best thing to do it also, there is if you go to the top of that map, it allows you to jump to a state. So we're going to jump to Georgia. So we're going to go to Georgia, and then in the top left you can magnify those sections, and as you do so you begin to see the shelters that come up and the campsite. So not only can you register for a shelter, but you can register for a campsite. So the first thing, now that I've got this pulled up, I'm going to go look at where 128 miles has me in AWOL's AT guide. So if I look at where 128 miles is, that puts me somewhere around 128 miles puts me somewhere around Tellico Gap, North Carolina. And so obviously we're going to have to be somewhere where we can get on the trail. And so that's one thing that you have to go back and look at when you're starting, is determine where it is that the AT is crossing over a major road somewhere, or if there's an approach trail coming off from somewhere. But for the time being, we won't get into that now. Let's just look at that Wetherbald shelter. So we'll go find that. And as you click on the shelters, it pulls up the site information for that shelter, and it will give you the maximum group size. It'll give you the capacity of the shelter. It tells you water on site. It tells you if there's a privy on site. And more importantly, this is what we're looking for. It gives you a calendar, and it shows you how many people are already registered for that particular shelter. So that's going to help us to see that whether or not we've got room there, and whether or not we need to move on a little further north up the trail. So let me find Wetherbald shelter here. Okay, so here we are at Wetherbald. Wetherbald's at an elevation of 4,060 feet, has a capacity of 10. Correction, that's the maximum group size. There's a capacity of 16. There's water on site, and there's a privy on site. There's nobody registered for that day. So that would be a good spot for us to start. But of course, the closer we get over the next couple weeks, we'll be looking a little closer to that to see if there's any registrations pick up. And that'll be our target, but we could pull back a little bit southbound or south of there and see if there's something else, if for no other reason, a little closer to where my friend's traveling from. He'll be coming from Athens, Georgia, so try to help him out so he doesn't have to travel so far. But Wetherbald's just inside of North Carolina, and I hadn't had a chance to look at the map to see what trailhead we're going to take to get in there, where we would actually start. So that's going to be part of the planning process too. But I didn't want to get too lengthy today, but I did want to kind of give you an idea for those that didn't know those were out there, that the ATC does give you a registration. You can see where the bubble is. fairly accurate information, better than nothing. And then also the campsite and shelter registration. We can look at that. That's new. Gives you some information, not perfect information by any means, but it does give you some information that you can look at. And you can assume that if they're packed out, it says on there, that they probably will be. So you might want, in this case, we might want to move a little north of those that are. So that's about it for this video. As I get a little closer to my section hike, I will be sharing with you a little more planning details about where we're going. But right now, it looks like we may be going to Western Bald Shelter for our first night. So appreciate you watching. If you got anything out of this video and you enjoyed it, then please like the video down there and give me a thumbs up. And I'd love to have you over here as a subscriber. So hit that subscribe button, and look forward to sharing with you more. Please leave a comment down the bottom of if you have any questions or things that you would like to see different, or just things you'd like to see me cover over the course of these videos. So I look forward to doing that, and look forward to building a community here. So appreciate you, and see you out there.